Hello folks, welcome to another video, and hopefully, well, if we get an early winter this year, then I guess this might be I guess a video that I guess before winter hits, and you know, 3-4 months later you guys get another video from me. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. This is my last Macanudo Gold. I bought like a pack of 10 of these, and this is the last one. So and of course the Brick House Maduro kicked my ass, so I'm definitely going with something a lot lighter. It's just like everyone, you know. Nice smooth draw, no bitterness at all. Yeah, so it is definitely a light cigar. Where's that little hound dog? The old hound dog just went in back inside the house. I should have brought my flashlight out. Yeah, so basically she had a encounter with the skunk. The old hound dog, he had his encounter with the skunk when we first moved in. And of course I told that story in an old video where I'm sitting there typing away at the computer, and suddenly I smell the skunk smell. So what the hell, man? The skunk. Yes, and this area that I live in does have skunks, possums, raccoons. So when the smell would go away, you know, so I get up, start walking around the house. I said, okay, don't smell in here. Go to the other room, doesn't smell in here either. And suddenly, wait, the smell just, wait a minute, this room just smells like a skunk. What the hell is going on? So it's like the skunk smell kind of just, you know, float around the house. Yeah, it turns out it was my the boy dog. He either got into a scuffle with the skunk, or he got into a scuffle with the possum. And yes, possums will excrete a when they play possum, they will excrete a rotten, musky kind of a skunk smell from their I guess gland in their mouth. And you know, of course I bathe him. Now what works for me, I skip the hydrogen peroxide. I found this online, and a few websites actually recommends it. It's basically a mix of sodium, what is it, baking soda. So it's not sodium hydroxide. That's acid. Basically it's a mix of baking soda with a couple of, it's like I guess you know, those boxes of baking soda that you buy at the store. It's one of those boxes, but half of that. So a half a box of baking soda, about 2, I go over like 3 or 4 tablespoons, but most websites recommend about 2 tablespoons of a dishwashing detergent, dishwashing liquid, not detergent. Yeah, back in the old days, for you young folks, they had dishwashing detergent. It actually came in a powder form, and I don't think they sell those anymore here in the U.S. Maybe, you know, maybe I guess if you buy a box of Ajax dishwashing detergent that comes in a powder form, but I think that's about it. But yeah, but back in the old days, I gotta touch up the cigar here before it begins to canoe. But yeah, nice smooth draw, no bitterness at all. Nice thick billowy smokes, you can see. So that for me, yeah, the problem with peroxide is that it could bleach your dog's hair. Now my dog, the male dog, he's the I guess the golden color. The female dog, she's black. Of course, I had to put her down last summer, but she never got into any scuffle with the skunks or possums. So of course the new puppy, she got into a scuffle with the skunk. Of course it was the day before It was late like this, you know, the sun's down, it's later in the evening. I hear her barking off in the, out in the yard. I go out, she's standing like towards the middle of the yard, barking towards the corner. I got my flashlight, I was like, man, better be some asshole climbing my fence. And there in the corner was a skunk with his tail raised up, you know, ready to fire its musk. So I was like, dog, you better back up. And of course, the skunk saw the light from the flashlight, and he at that point, you know, I called the dog. She came to me. Yeah, you gotta train your dogs really young when they're puppies. You know, when you whistle, when you call them, that they come to you in situations like that. She actually obeyed and came to me, still barking, of course, but she came to me. The skunk saw that the dog was backing off, and it, you know, took off and went underneath one of the holes in the fence that it probably dug. There she goes. And of course, she's barking back at a dog that's barking off in the distance. So the next night, she's barking again. And then she comes in, and of course, she's quiet when she. So she knows something happened to her. But of course, dogs, unlike humans, now dogs will react if they get like hit in the face directly. I think she got hit like on the side of the body. So she came in. I'm like immediately, like, oh shit, you dumb dog. It's like, were you messing with that skunk again? And got sprayed by the skunk. Same thing. You know, the was it the sodium? Damn it, what's it called? Sodium peroxide? No, not peroxide. Baking soda. It's baking soda, dishwashing detergent. You know, ran that through her twice, and then the regular doggy shampoo. Yeah, now of course all the other dogs are barking. Quiet, you little mutt. And that works. So if your dog gets hit by a... Now I think both times when my dogs got hit by the skunk, it was probably like a glancing hit. It wasn't like a direct, like they got the full. Because I think the way skunk sprays is that it's kind of like a shotgun, where it's like a scatter spray, and not like a stream. I don't know. I'm not a skunk professional. Yeah. Something's causing the dogs to bark. I think that's the neighbor's poodle. It could be the animals. Of course, I went down to, you know, the local store, bought the critter ritter. You know, the human and pet safe critter ritter. It's like a small it's like small grains, small granular. It's not really a powder. Also bought the spray. I sprinkled the granules all around the shack, around the trees in the backyard, the corners of the fence, and then for the spray, I of course I doubled it up with the spray. Sprayed it around the shack, the storage shack. Sprayed it around the edges of the fence. Of course, went to all the holes where the little critters were digging, whether into the yard, exit the yard. You know, buried those up, sprayed it down real, you know, as wet as I could get it. And I didn't check it today. I guess I'll check it tomorrow and see if they redug in other spots. And I'll probably have to, you know, bury those up and dig them up. So that's the I guess update on local issue. You know, and yeah, and that's one of the thing with living. I'm sort of a little bit past. There's of course rural. There's urban, which is the inner city. You know, then you got the suburbs. Then you got like in between the suburbs and the rural. That's where I'm at. Yeah, you can still keep livestock. It's just limited. I think one of the neighbors has a cow because I can hear it mooing. But I think out here, you of course check with your city ordinance. Or if you're not sure, just give them a call. They'll tell you, yeah, you can keep, you know, 10 hens or 1 rooster or something like that. Or you can keep 1 cow. I should probably go buy a pygmy goat. You know, yeah, the dogs would probably love it. They'd probably go crazy and attack it. You know, and use the property as a tax write-off for farmland. You're not tough, little dog. Yeah, so my dog stopped barking, but the other people's dogs are still barking. Right, so basically on the Martha's Vineyard, so it turns out the 50 illegals, I'm not going to call them migrants, because a migrant means that they're coming through and going somewhere else. They're migrating like geese, you know, or like ducks. You know, they migrate to the north, you know, during the summer. They come down south for winter. These folks ain't migrating, you know. They plan on staying, so they're not migrants. So it turns out the 50 that went to Martha's Vineyard are from Venezuela. They did sign I mean, they're here illegally. I mean, technically they got, I mean, of course, human rights. They have basic human rights. You know, you can't like take them and torture them. You know, you can't take them and sell them as slaves. You know, so they got basic human rights. But as for like rights as a U.S. citizen would have, they don't have those rights. So anyways, DeSantis had them sign a consent form telling them, hey, I'm going to send you to Martha's Vineyard. Do you want to go? You know, it's a nice place where a lot of rich people live, you know, and they all love you. You know? Yeah, I can just see the conversation now, right? And they all signed and they agreed. And of course, you know, the Ambalam chaser lawyers looking for clout, you know, and again, in the U.S., you can sue anybody, anything. You can sue a rock if you wanted to. And of course, that case won't go anywhere. And again, in the U.S., and of course, you know, if these people are migrants, as they say they are, then they should have, or refugees. Going from Venezuela, they would have gone into Honduras, which would have been the first. Yeah, I think it's Honduras, then Panama, then it's Guatemala. I forget my. So, anyways, in order to get from Venezuela, you know, past the I guess there's a passage there that's impassable by foot. You have to either, you know, fly over it or use boats to get through. I forgot what it's called. It's called the something pass. So basically, they have to actually, you know, go there, hire a boat, because these folks with these traffickers, you know, they're not going to ferry you for free, so they have to pay for a boat fee to cross that pass, and supposedly it's like one of the more dangerous waterways in the world, one of the more dangerous, not the most dangerous. And then from there, they either, I think, enter Panama. I think it's Panama, then it's Honduras, then Guatemala. So the way the UN Articles of Refugee states that, you know, you as a refugee fleeing a war-torn country, or a civil war-torn, or fleeing, I guess, a tyrannical government in this case, you would go into the neighboring country, I guess in this case Panama, and then from there you would fill out your paperwork, like, hey, yeah, I want refugee status in the United States. You fill out your paperwork. If there's any fees, you pay your fee. You wait your turn. I don't know what the waiting period is for a refugee. I'm pretty sure it's not a few weeks. It's probably years. Unless you can find a sponsor, then it might be a few months. Because that's basically what happened with my family. You know, we fled the Vietnam War. So we fled into Thailand. My parents, you know, fled into Thailand. Of course, I told this story in other videos. Of course, my dad worked with the CIA, so the CIA, helped him out. And they stayed in Thailand in a refugee camp in Thailand, filled out the paperwork, waited, and I guess one of the guys, one of the CIA agents or one of the operators who worked with my dad had a relative that had connections that got sponsors for us. So we waited, filled out our paperwork, got our sponsor. We stayed there for like 6 months. I guess the first 3 months they filled out the paperwork, waiting for a sponsor. Once they got the sponsor, another 3 months. So it's 6 months. We got on a plane. You little. Yeah, it's Friday. This is a Friday smoke, and I guess some neighbors are out, and they're being a little rowdy, but that's fine. It's not even 10 o'clock yet. Got on a plane, of course, landed in New York. Got our refugee papers status. Parents went to they went to ESL class. Of course, back then, yeah, you didn't get any government dole. They had you go to ESL class, or at least my parents, since they were the adults, had them go to ESL class, had them do job training. So they at least helped with that much. It's like, hey, go to this government ESL class, attend these job placement courses. And no, there was no housing assistance. Yeah, and I spoke to my parents on this. They're like, yeah, we didn't get any housing assistance. We didn't get any. We got food assistance with a food stamp, but for housing assistance, schooling, healthcare, all of that, came out of their own pocket. They didn't get the government dole that of course the illegals. We came. My parents came legally, but that's basically how a refugee. I don't know how migrant would work, but that's basically how a refugee, if you do it the correct way, works. And yes, and in the U.S., for illegals who comes to the U.S., you make it into the U.S., you pass the background check, where you're not part of MS-13 or you're not wanted for murder back in the country where you came from. At that point, there are legal ways for you to get your green card and eventually become a U.S. citizen. But these folks don't want to do that. And Oklahoma, just showed it. So basically, the eye of Sauron in D.C. is on Texas and Florida. So Oklahoma quietly, I guess it's their H.R. 1804. Basically, what it is that if you're an illegal and you want to stay in Oklahoma, then you must want to become a green card holder or a U.S. citizen afterwards. If not, then you're being deported back to Mexico or Venezuela, wherever it is you came from. And Oklahoma, surprisingly, is the only state in the 2020 election where none of the counties was won by Biden. And of course, Trump won the majority. He actually had like 3 times more counties won than Biden. But I guess that doesn't count if you don't win the correct counties, I guess. And according to the state immigration of Oklahoma, pretty much all of the illegals left Oklahoma. It's like now they don't want to. Yeah, because basically you got to pass a background check. You get tracked. You get an immigration person comes check up on you. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Working and paying taxes. So it looks like states like Texas and so on are going to. And yes, I think it's either this month or next month, September, October, is where the state legislators are back in session. and hopefully Texas passes something of that's like that. And yes, like I say, and that, federally, there's also a way that for illegals to get green cards and eventually become citizens. But again, you got to pass the background check, and of course at that point you get tracked. So these folks just decide, hey, I want to go live on my own. I don't want to be tracked. And this one, of course, I didn't hear about. So basically, again, Oklahoma, I think Montana, and one of the, and I think it was either was it West Virginia maybe? Basically, declared themselves sovereign states. I'm not sure what that means, but I think that means that's one step from secession. I think declaring your state as a sovereign state, meaning you don't want or don't really need federal funding or big daddy government money. And it seems states, of course, Texas, Florida, both the Carolinas, and like 3 or 4 other states are going to follow this and file for sovereignty. And like I said, I think that's like one step from breaking away. Just like back in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed, and we're heading there. We're heading to a collapse. This is the 3rd quarter of a GDP, negative GDP, where we have no GDP growth. We're heading to a depression. After the depression, there's a collapse. Yeah, so basically back in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Lots of the Eastern European countries seceded and became their own country, like Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, Hungary, just to name a few. Yeah, and I'll get to the Russian thing too. Probably get to that next. So we'll see. Of course, I think Arizona is going to probably want to, if Curry Lake wins next month, well, actually, it's not October yet, but come November, if Curry Lake wins, she's probably going to be like, yeah, we're sovereign state too. You little, yeah, both the dogs are out here. Yeah, it is a nice, cool evening. Like I said, this year, so it's like the cool weather has actually come a little early. Normally it's October, that we like towards the end of October actually is when we get the cool weather. Of course, my cherry tomatoes are finally coming in. They're still green. I don't know how long it takes. Yes, cherries, not cherry, but well, cherries too. But tomatoes do ripen off the vine, so if you pick green tomatoes and let it sit on the counter, it will eventually turn red. I picked one of them just to taste, but yeah, green cherry tomatoes taste horrible. I guess the only way I can describe it is it's a very green bitter taste. Yeah, darn bugs. I'm almost halfway through the cigar. And of course, I planted Thai chili, and of course I decided to plant them a little bit late, and of course I should have planted them back in March, but the plant that I went with went south, so I was like, okay, well I gotta plant something else. I'm not really a spicy. I'll eat spicy, like for instance, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm more like a 2, a 1 or a 2. 3 for me is a little bit too spicy. Darn bugs! Come on, smoke! Chase the bugs away. So I planted my Thai chili last month. They sprouted, and I'm hoping. I got some of them in pots, and I got some of them in the ground. I'm hoping to get some chili before it gets too cold here. And of course, the ones that are in the pots, I'm taking inside. My what you call that? My cucumber, what you call it? The pickle-sized cucumbers. Those were a dud. When they first sprouted and they got a little bit big, they did give me cucumbers, and of course I got bugs. Took out a couple of them. I tried using neem oil, a organic pesticide spray. The neem oil works, but it doesn't work as well as the pesticide. The problem with the pesticide is that the plant doesn't seem to like it. So if I use it the next day, I gotta spray it off. It also start wilting the leaves on the plant. So the cucumber's a bust. My holy basil, I got some from, I guess, from my brother. His wife does gardening. I got some from her with that at their house, and yeah, holy basil smells nice. If you ever been to a pho restaurant and you get that green, kind of a purple green plant that has a I really can't describe it. It's almost like a licorice smell, a star anise, or a licorice smell. So if you ever been to a pho restaurant and you got that plant, that's holy basil, and they do proliferate. So if you plant them in the garden, and if you kind of plant them away from other other plants, because you'll need to give them rooms to expand, and they don't require much. Just a miracle grow. Replace the dirt when it gets too old. But they are a hardy plant. It's easy to grow because when I first transplanted them, they wilted. But I was told, hey, just keep watering it, keep feeding it with the miracle grow. And yeah, I kept up, and like a week later, they came to life. I was like, okay, cool. And of course, I made sure to dig and got as much root, because on plants, roots. Hey. Because on plants, roots are what sucks up water and nutrients from the ground. And yes, you could stick a stem in water and put in one of those liquids, the cuttings liquids, or cloning liquid. I've done it for I guess one of my tomato plants, just for experiment. And to my surprise, it does work. It's like, hey, this actually works. The liquid's not cheap, but it's just experimenting. So that way you don't have to depend on getting seeds from your plant. You can just do cutting. Darn bug! And now my nose is all itchy. Gotta blow hard to get them out. Yeah, and of course the ashes, that's like 1.5 inches, and it hasn't fallen. So I'm trying to position it to where if it does fall, it doesn't fall on top of my feet. Yeah, that's the dog inside the house. So that's enough for the plants. So we'll move on to Russia, and I guess enough for the illegals. And of course the 50 that died in the truck in El Paso, and yes, some sheriff in El Paso, I forgot what the name of that county is called out there in El Paso, is he's trying to investigate DeSantis. Like, dude, man, that's way out of your jurisdiction, but I guess it's all just for show, and he should be investigating the 50 dead illegals that was in the back of that 18-wheeler a few weeks back. Right, so on to Russia. So yes, so Putin is sending. So he's anticipating that the 4 regions that Russia has taken over or partially taken over is going to ratify the referendum to join the Russian Federation. So he's gathering up 300,000 troops. Per Putin's, I guess, speech to his nation, these 300,000 troops are they're veterans. Basically, they're guys who served in the military, or they're guys who've had military experience. So these aren't just conscripts off the street, kind of like me, just going and sweeping up guys off the street who has no military experience. So these are 300,000 soldiers that he's going to be sending, probably as a defense force, because you're gaining 4 territories. And again, like I said, Ukraine is a big. And of course, I looked on the map again. Ukraine is actually about the size of like Germany and France combined, and yeah, that's still big. So basically, the referendum is for I guess the Luhansk, I pronounced it correctly, Luhansk region, Donetsk region, which is in the west, and in the south is the I guess Kherson and Zaporov. Again, I'm probably not pronouncing these Russian names correctly. So basically, the Russians have taken over basically the western side of Ukraine, and pretty much the southern side of Ukraine, which of course borders the Sea of Azov, the Sea of Azov, and the Black Sea. And the referendum is going to be 5 days of voting. So I guess it started Thursday, which would have been, I guess, yesterday, and it'll go till Monday. So I guess we won't know until Tuesday, Wednesday next week. But it's looking like Putin is anticipating that all 4. Yeah, and of course, in pretty much in the western side of Ukraine is pretty much Russian citizens. Ukrainians do speak Ukrainian and Russian, but if you hear the Ukrainian person speak, at least to my ear, I don't speak Russian, but at least to my ear, it sounds like they're speaking Russian. So it's probably something like American English and British English, where it's just the accent. Like someone who don't speak English, hear an American speak and a British person speak, and they're like, yeah, okay, the accent's different, but to me it sounds like they're speaking English. And that's what it sounds like to me when I hear a Ukrainian speak Ukrainian and a Russian person speak Russian. It's like, yeah, different accent, but it sounds like the same language that they're speaking. So is that? So he's sending 300,000 troops, and of course the Russian defense minister, they're saying that Ukraine so far has lost 100,000 plus soldiers, and Russia has lost about 5,000 to 10,000 soldiers. So that's about a 10 to 1 or a 10 to 1 or a 20 to 1 death ratio, which is an ass kicking, by the way. So is Russia losing? I don't. If you, of course, if you listen to the AP, BBC, or CNN, you're thinking, yeah, Ukraine is winning. But of course, I would listen more to the folks who are actually in the fight. If the Russian defense minister is saying it, they're the one that's in the fight, I would believe them more than CNN or BBC. There we go, the ash just fell off. We get a drink of water, my throat's getting dry. Yeah, don't it? Let me take the band off. Take the gold, that nice, shiny gold band. Well, that didn't work. Okay, well, come on now. There it goes. I'll leave the other band on for now. Yeah, it causes me pollen in the air too. So and the smoke, going into my nose and face from the cigar. So basically, that's what they're saying. So I would believe them more, since again they're the one that's in the fight. So yeah, so Ukraine did gain some territory back last week when they sent 10,000 men into the Kharkov region. But of course, they've since lost that. They've lost that territory that they've gained. They've lost it back. And also, according to the Russian defense minister, what they're saying is that the Ukrainians now have exhausted their weapons, their, I guess, Russian style weapons, and they're now using pretty much NATO and American weapons, which means that there are, American specialists who are in Ukraine. They've been in Ukraine from the beginning. Instructors, trainers, because these guys, they've been trained to use Russian missile launchers, Russian tanks, Russian missiles. And if you're sending all of this money and weapons, like the U.S. has sent something like $53 billion in weapons, along with like this, $75 billion on top of that. So in total, you're looking at 125 billion or 128 billion in weapons and just money aid to Ukraine. And I don't know why Biden is sending so much to Ukraine. It's almost like he's got something personal, tied with Ukraine. It's almost like this is your buddy. You got this is like a buddy, or you got a buddy in Ukraine and you're helping him out, kind of thing. It's kind of like your boy coming to you saying, "Hey, man, I need help with the rent money." Yeah, dog, how much do you need? Kind of stuff. Yeah, like I said, it's almost like he's got something personal tied up with Ukraine, because that's a lot of freaking money. And of course, he's telling U.S. soldiers to go on food stamp. And here he is sending off, $128 billion to Ukraine in weapons and in aid. Yeah, so according to the Russian defense minister, they're saying that from here forward, you're going to be seeing pretty much nothing but Ukrainians using American weapons. And yes, and the bulk of their fighting force are conscripts. We're talking about mechanics, plumbers, old guys like me, are being pulled off the street as cannon fodders, because and they're not, in some cases they're barely training these guys, and in some cases they're not training them at all. Just giving them a rifle. Here you go, man. Go fight the Russians. And a lot of the guys are surrendering. So again, we're getting conflicting news. The AP, Reuters, CNN, they're saying, hey, Ukraine's winning, they're kicking Russia's butt. But then on the other side, the Russian defense minister, they're saying, hey, they got 100,000 dead. We only got like 5,000 to 10,000 dead. We pretty much destroyed all of their weapons. Now they're using nothing but American and NATO weapons. Which means there are, NATO personnel, American personnel that's in Ukraine. And there's one thing that's of interest and should scare everybody is freaking Biden threatening nukes, threatening to nuke Russia. I'm like, dude, this is not Iran. This is not North Korea. You're threatening a nuclear superpower who's got, tens of thousands of nukes. And on top of that, they got hypersonic missiles, which according to, military experts, the West's got nothing to shoot it down. And we don't know how many hypersonic missiles Russia's got. Because you're expecting if it happens, if nukes ever get launched, they're saying that each side could take out, approximately about 70% of the rockets launched. So if the U.S. launched 10,000, Russia launched 10,000, 3,000 is still going to land. And of course, you know, they're going to put their biggest, the biggest warhead or the targets of most importance are going to be getting the hypersonic missiles. So yeah, I mean, you can threaten Iran, you can threaten North Korea with nukes, you know, but threatening Russia is stupid. Which I hope doesn't happen, because that is stupid. And of course, Putin replied, like, "Hey, if you're going to threaten me, you know, bring it on. We got nukes too. We got even, it's like we got even better nukes than you guys." And of course, there's the Tsar bomb, which is, I guess a one-time. We don't know if Russia has any more Tsar bomb, but it was just a, it was like a 280 megaton nuke that I guess Russia tested like back in the 80s, was in the 70s, the Tsar bomb, and that was like the largest nuke ever tested. And supposedly this hey, Russia didn't build anymore. It was just a one-off or one-time only deal. So who knows? You know, Russia may have 10,000 Tsar bombs. We don't know. But here's the deal. You know, the U.S. should stay out of Ukraine. Yes, if you're going to send trainers, you know, you're going to send specialists. I guess you're going to have to. But as for you know grunts, actually sending foot soldiers, don't bother doing that, because you're just sending them to die. Yeah, because I guess again, you know, military experts, they're saying, hey, you know, Russia, they got the you know, they got the combat veterans that's been fighting, you know, for years. Crimea, you know, of course, Putin took Crimea. He's not going to give Crimea back. He took what's the other? I think one or two other regions that he took, you know, before he invaded Ukraine. So Russia has some, you know, I guess combat hardened veterans. Toward the U.S., you know, of course, we have our, you know, our veterans who, you know, were over in Afghanistan, but you know, for the most part, you know, those guys were just sitting around in Canada. What's that base in Kandor? No, there's one in Kandor. What's that big one that's that the Chinese now own? I think it's Kandor, or is it? I forgot. Yeah, but the Chinese basically own it. I'm pretty sure the Chinese or Xi went to Biden and said, "Hey, man, you know that big old base of yours, you know, that the U.S. owns, is too close to one of our nuclear processing centers. You know, it's like a one hour flight. You know, I need you to get out of Afghanistan ASAP. Make it so, you know." And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the conversation that Xi and Biden had. So get your ass out. I'm your boss. You know, you and your son owe me, you know, billions of dollars. So anyways, yeah, he's not going to give back Crimea, and those 4 territory will join Russia. So basically, once they become part of Russia, any attacks into Donetsk, or any attacks into Donbass, which is in Donetsk, is basically an attack on Russian soil, so the Russians can retaliate with the full military might. So yeah, so I was always wondering, well, why are they calling it special military operation? It's basically a police action, kind of like the U.S. when the U.S. went into Iran. No, Iraq, not Iran. So when the U.S. went into Iraq the first time and the second time, was Desert Storm and Desert Shield, whichever one was the first, the second one. I remember the news, you know, CNN, that they kept saying, "Hey, this is a police action. You know, this is not a full-on war. It is a police action. You know, a UN police action." You know, 20 years later, you know, and of course, in the case of Iraq, 20 years later, we're still in Iraq. We haven't pulled out of Iraq yet. And of course, pulled out of Afghanistan. You know, if you're gonna pull out, stay out. But the U.S. is still in Iraq. So the main folks, so the main people, American citizen-wise, are contractors who are in Ukraine. And what are contractors? These are paid mercenaries. So these aren't the guys on Reddit, you know, the purple hair, green hair guys on Reddit, you know, who are, you know, just angry, steam coming out of their ear, and they gotta go fight Ukraine. They go off on their own. But no, these guys are contractors. They actually work for a mercenary company, and they're being paid. So these guys are actually in Ukraine, but no, they're there not on behalf of the U.S. Of course, they're there, you know, on behalf of Ukraine as an American citizen who's a contractor, being, you know, who works for a company. Yeah, and these guys get paid good. We use contractors in Iraq, and yeah, and contractors are still in Iraq. We use them in Afghanistan. Of course they're paid way better than a regular soldier. It's good paying, but of course it's a dangerous job. And of course, unlike Afghanistan, you know, you're actually fighting against a military superpower. You know, you're not fighting against guys in caves, you know, drinking water out of a pond, you know, pooping in buckets. Yeah, and there are some videos that are coming out of Ukraine that are showing these contractors, and they're speaking American English. Yeah, and you can tell. Let's watch the few of them. Yeah, these guys are Americans. That accent, you know, and yeah, you can do an American accent just like you can do a British accent. But you know, if you're an American and, you know, you speak the American English, you can kind of tell if someone's faking it. Just like when you call customer service, you get some guy named John in India, and yeah, and yes, they do teach these folks the American accent, to speak with an American accent. Mostly it's the California or West Coast accent, or they'll teach them the Midwest accent. Hold on. Hey, calm down. Come on, come down. Come here, you. Come on. Probably a possum climbing the gate. Come on. Calm down. Yeah, I think it was either... You calm down. It didn't trigger the light, so it's probably a possum, a raccoon, or something that climbed the gate. Yeah, 'cause I heard a clink, like something jumped on the gate. Yeah, of course the dog definitely heard it. So that's Ukraine. And yeah, once that referendum goes through, and, you know, Putin sends his 300,000 soldiers, and you know, and I guess, you know, turns it from a special operation to a military operation as opposed to a police operation. Who knows what's going to happen with Ukraine? I don't think Putin wants Ukraine. He just wants those territory that I mentioned, which are buffer territories, kind of like the U.S., kind of like China. You know, the U.S. lost, basically, the U.S. basically lost 2 wars to China. They lost the Korean War and they lost the Vietnam War. So, so in the, I guess, low history. So in the Korean War, you know, General MacArthur, he pushed the Chinese and the communist Koreans all the way to the Yellow River. And from there, you know, of course, he didn't get the okay from Washington, and that's what probably screwed it up. He wanted to push the Chinese all the way to Beijing, and then nuke. Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have said, "I want to nuke Beijing." My dinner. Now, had he said, "I just want to push them back all the way up to Beijing," yeah, because the thing is that southern China, they speak Cantonese, and Cantonese sounds different from Mandarin. If you want to hear what Cantonese sounds like, just They have them on YouTube. Just type in, Cantonese drama or Hong Kong drama. Listen to it, and then go listen to a Chinese Beijing drama, and you'll hear the difference. Well, you may not, I guess, if you don't speak Chinese. Yeah, but folks in the South speaks both Mandarin and Cantonese. So if you go to southern China, you'll again, I guess, if you don't speak it, you probably won't notice. Yeah, so had MacArthur done that, he would have basically split China into a North China and a Southern China. And like I said, had he not mentioned I want to nuke Beijing, because at the time the U.S. only had, back in the 50s, the U.S. was still developing, or of course China was developing their nukes too, but they didn't get theirs until like the 60s, during the Vietnam War, which of course the U.S. and China kept threatening each other with nukes during the Vietnam War, but it never happened, luckily. But at the time, the U.S. only had 4 nukes, and yeah, I mean 4 nukes is all it would take to take out Beijing. So of course he didn't get the okay from D.C. Of course, a Democrat president was in the office at the time, the warmongering lefties, the warmongering Democrats. So they waited, and of course the Chinese had time to gather up their troops. They sent down 100,000 troops, and of course the U.S. Marines who were stationed at that time in Northern Korea got their ass kicked, and of course they got chased all the way down to the Bay of Pusan, or the city of Pusan, which is in the southwest of South Korea, the Southwest Peninsula area. And of course MacArthur's like, all right, man, we got to salvage this. Hey, you stop growling, you're not tough, little dog. So of course MacArthur took the remnants of the I don't know which corps of the U.S. Marines, stuck them on some Navy ships, went around the Korean Peninsula, and pretty much surprised the Chinese and the communist Koreans, and of course at that point they're like, okay, this is going to be North Korea, it's going to be South Korea, and that's how that became. And of course in the Vietnam War, the U.S. should, in my opinion, the U.S. should just say, hey man, we're declaring war, instead of doing these false flags or doing these, hey, it's a police action. Same thing with Vietnam War. It dragged on for 10 years. I think the Korean War dragged on for like 5, 6, 7 years. That's a long time. But let me get the band off. Yeah, but the Vietnam War dragged on for 10 years and pretty much screwed up Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. Of course, you have Pol Pot, the killing fields. They captured him at 77 years old. And of course, the dude, one of his excuses, I was doing it for social justice. That was darn mosquito. That was his excuse for killing 1.3 million of his own people, was for social justice. And of course back then I think the population of Cambodia was like 3 million. He killed nearly half of the population of Cambodia for social justice. And yeah, they hung his ass. Had a public execution. People went to watch, and the rope went around his neck. And some people are saying, no, the guy they captured is not Pol Pot. Well, they actually did a DNA test. There was a surviving, I guess it's either his sister or a grandkid or one of his surviving relatives, basically. There was a female relative, I think it's a sister or a granddaughter or something. They got her DNA, matched it with his. It's like, yeah, this is Pol Pot. Your DNA matches, dude. I mean, it may have been Pol Pot's brother. Who knows? And yeah, and I was surprised the dude stuck around in Cambodia. I don't know where they captured him. I assume. Don't smoke. Yeah, it's not windy at all, and the smoke's just hovering around my face. Cigar smoke's not bad, but you know, I prefer to taste it rather than sniff it when it's, you know, when it's in the air. Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't know where. I'm assuming they captured him in Cambodia, or maybe they captured him in Vietnam or something, and they extradited him. But yeah, if you're a war criminal of that magnitude, I don't care if you're 77 years old, dude. You're being put on trial, and it was a quick trial, and it was a quick execution. So yeah, so back to Vietnam. So eventually they went with the 38 parallel. And so if a MiG flew over the 38 parallel, our fighters could intercept it. But if the MiG fighter flew back across the 38 parallel, the yard light just triggered. Well, the dog's not barking. Yeah, and sometimes winds will trigger these made in China sensor lights. Oh, looks like the ash just fell down. And the same thing, if troops came down past the 38 parallel, get into a fight with U.S. Marines, if they went back up past the 38 parallel, oh, we can't chase them anymore, you know. Oh dear, they went, you know, they're back across the 38 parallel. So basically, the Chinese, at the time, and of course the MiGs, you know, the AK, the weapons, the RPGs were all being supplied by China. Kind of like what the U.S. is doing with Ukraine, if you think about it. But of course, this is on the Chinese doorstep, so this is like Mexico, you know. This would be like Mexico decides, you know, if China or Russia, you know, comes to Mexico, and the U.S. is supplying Mexico with weapons and stuff, you know, that would make sense because it's on the U.S.'s doorstep. But this is on the Chinese doorstep. So yeah, so the Chinese are supplying money, weapons, you know, jet fighters and tanks to the Viet Cong. And yes, people are saying that if, oh, yeah, got some cigar chunks in my mouth. So some people are saying that had DC let the generals do what the generals need to do, they could have won the Vietnam War actually before the 10-year. So the Chinese basically said, okay, screw this. No, we're not going to let this end up being a North Vietnam and South Vietnam. So of course the Tet Offensive, which happened on the Vietnamese or the Chinese New Year, I think there's Vietnamese New Year and the Chinese New Year. So basically the Tet Offensive, that's when the Chinese and the communist Vietnamese all gathered up, and you know, I guess, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning, when everybody's belly is full, drunk, you know, full of food and beer, alcohol, they attacked, and of course that pushed them. You know, the Tet Offensive pushed the U.S. and the Vietnamese nationalists, and of course you can see the videos of the and they didn't let up. You know, once they pushed down, and you know, they had the U.S. Marines on their heels, on our heels. They had the Vietnamese nationalists on their heels. They pushed them all the way to Saigon, and that's where you see, and that's where you got the fall of Saigon, where you have all of the nationalist Vietnamese who were, you know, rushing the U.S. embassy, you know, showing paperwork. Hey, I got paperwork. You know, trying to get on that picture of that U.S. embassy, where it was that the Huey helicopter, and there were people clinging onto it as it was taking off. And yes, there were South Vietnamese, not South Vietnamese, but nationalist Vietnamese chopper pilots who were going into Saigon, picking up people, picking up their family, basically. That's what I would do. I'd be like, hey, mom, dad, you know, honey, gather the kids. I'm going to land on top of the U.S. Embassy. Make sure you guys get there. Get your ass on, because the U.S. fleet is leaving in a couple of hours. And of course, you see the pictures of the Huey helicopters being dumped off the side of the U.S. aircraft carriers, because those were, they had no rooms for planes and stuff to land, and those are extra helicopters that landed, and you weren't going to stop those pilots from landing. Yeah, so the fall of Saigon, yeah, check it out. Just on YouTube, they have videos of it. That YouTube hasn't scrubbed it. Kind of like I guess the fall of what's the capital of Afghanistan again? Anyways, kind of like the fall of Afghanistan, where you got all those Afghanis clinging on to the C-17s as they're taking off. Unfortunately, don't bug. Get out of my nose, man. They think my nose is a tunnel or something, and I don't even have big nose, man. What the? Don't bug. Anyways, they'll fly to the back of your throat, and you'll enjoy the bug. So the U.S. lost twice to China. Basically, they lost twice to China in a war, the Korean War and the Vietnam War. And of course, so far we're getting our ass kicked in the trade wars too. And like I said, right now China is unofficially sanctioning the U.S. The excuse they use is that, hey, there's a COVID outbreak in Xinjiang. We're locking Xinjiang down, so no supplies are coming out of Xinjiang. But if you look at the shipping, I guess there are apps you can use that shows all of the cargo ships, fishing ships, military ships. But if you look at the shipping, I guess there's a website you can go to. There's a guy on YouTube that does it, so you don't have to go. You don't have to worry about going to the website. And he shows is Monkey Works. That's it. Yeah, I think his name is Monkey Works, and I check out his stuff every now and then. But it shows, like, in the U.S., 20 or 30 ships at San Diego, down in Houston port, 20, 30 ships. But if you go and look at China, it's literally hundreds of cargo ships going back and forth between South China Sea up to Shanghai, up to Beijing. So the Chinese they're shipping stuff between themselves, but none of that is coming to the U.S. We're talking like hundreds of cargo ships that's just going back and forth, as opposed to the U.S. where it's just like 20 or 30 at each of these major ports. Well, that's it. Enjoy your smoke, and hopefully I get this uploaded. The editing is not bad now. Like I said, I've upgraded my desktop computer. Getting the cutting, swiping, doing the ending thank you. That doesn't take very long, and like I said, even a 1 hour long video takes about 10 minutes to convert once I get it all edited. The upload to YouTube was taking, for even a 30-minute video, it's taking like 2 hours, and this one's going on an hour, unfortunately. That takes, this will probably take like 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get to upload to YouTube, because basically what it does, it renders the non-HD first, then YouTube I guess renders the HD. So when you click on the video, you'll get like the 480, 760. Then you get the 1080 by 60. That's the one that takes a long time. The regular HD takes about 30 minutes, and then an hour and a half to get the HD rendered, I guess, onto YouTube. And yeah, enjoy your cigar. Enjoy your cigarette. Weed where it's legal. And yeah, enjoy your vape. Thanks for sticking around if you stuck around this long.